Sanini Baba Sanini Sara Sanitia Hoya Mava Look at it, the Nimbatiga Tilakatati Chincho with a hogger Pivavi in a Tilapies on Jinya Yana in a June Eddie Juha Job allowed a Jum Hopo to get Chandas in Hodeva. Eddie Chandariga Tomia Widow Shinya Hambo Yawara Ha Udamazwa Tadanarom Haro Lula Sum Chanda Zome Sravori Era Sehoya Mama Tujara Roti Pabiza Mingala Ubadamara Mingala Buene Agu Home Tianega Belu Tuavido Taisani Mamadibu Throw Taisane went there.
Last week, the Sayadaw talked about Sila, morality, and we can say that his talk on Sila was quite complete the last time. Today will be a sort of continuation of last week's talk, where the Sayadaw will deal with some more benefits that one can derive from purity of conduct. The ordinary benefits or happiness that one can enjoy through this purity of conduct is not really the end of the spiritual path. Above that sort of happiness that one can achieve through purity of conduct is that which arises through renunciation. This, in fact, is the essence of the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha's dispensation. To renounce the world and to seek a higher sort of happiness. And today it's very appropriate to talk about this. It's a very wonderful coincidence, perhaps, that we should have an ordination ceremony today to mark a sort of continuation of last week's talk. This indeed is a very auspicious occasion.
Lu level lu like Yahan like Saudi sounding that the lady Mabia Sinjay Eddie Tila me pubida Kamagoni piece on it Nabawa Yada de Sodamias of here Tilagatai Chame Ma Teka Kataboli Sebido Howare Eddie Nabi Soda Eita Luapare Kanta Nitabuele Pipare Manaba Mianubuele Pipare Eddie Nabi Ma Miera Nasi in Chandarine Pio Mubiro Sin Chanda Mumuri Leva Yanai Bare Also Nabiro Ma Teta Goodam body Lu Teta Lu Ye Duenes me Goodam Cloudy Shishi near as a jaw. Just of here did the Narima Pavare. အဲ့ဒီအကျိုးတွေရနိုင်တယ်လို့ဆိုတယ်
According to the Buddha's teaching, if one endeavors to be very meticulously pure in respect of one's moral conduct, whether one be a lay person or one who has renounced the world, this purity of conduct will lead to rebirth in the heavenly realms. And indeed, in the Buddha's usual talk, there is this succession of topics, and the one that immediately follows this discussion on Sila, on morality, is that on the subject of the heavenly realms, the happiness and the bliss that one can derive or one can enjoy in the heavenly realms. The Buddha said that the heavenly realms are desirable, they are pleasurable, they are charming, lovely, fascinating, enticing. It is also said that beings who are reborn in the heavenly celestial realms live for a fantastic length of time, many, many thousands and thousands of years, compared to our very short human lifespan.
Adilo Tilaye Jo Anite Nazi Chadari, Home Solushi, Miaswa Piamia Canduendo, Masandal of Shipari, Holomacona Musa Debe. Miaswa Piama, Holomacona Musa, Pony Holo Leve, Disacan Condore, Tipima Hobu. Tira Yatanga Yalaya, Petinania, Palaya, Tibian La Hosia, Miaishiva. Taja Dine Tilaja Yashi Nabawa, Domo Lubawa, Eddie Lubawa, ha Belauti Chana, the less of the body. Sisi Chicha, man.
The pleasures and bliss that can be experienced in the celestial realms are many and varied. And in fact, it is said that even the Buddha's mouth is unable to contain a full description of all these pleasures and bliss. No special mention need to be said of Sayadaw's small mouth. Although there are lots of things, very interesting things that can be said about life in the celestial realms, we have to stop somewhere, or else we can continue talking until the end of this retreat. Tonight's talk, especially, Sayadaw would like to investigate and examine the happiness that one can have the opportunity to experience if we are born as human beings, compared to the happiness in the celestial realms.
Lure Sura Tadawari Sura Juri Matia Wusulushi Pioso Somare Hago Laina Butemeluela. You don't miss of Yaga Lumame Galero Kazazia lady, Sazia lady, baby dog. Piano twist on the low body. Tilari pies on ja, Tilari pies on Loshi. Tilo Kamagoni bought Amiera Pio Mubi the singing channel in a piece on it, Nabuasura Yada de Sarabodi. Nabuane sat it. The yarn body, piano twist on video. Pay about it.
As a rule, worldlings are very demanding when it comes to arguments. They need to be persuaded very sweetly. They need to know what they can get out of something that they have to do. They're always thinking of the rewards that will come out of their actions. Knowing this very well, the Buddha made use of very skillful means to cajole and to persuade very sweetly such ordinary worldlings by telling them that if you keep your precepts, if you're meticulous in maintaining purity of conduct, then in the afterlife you will enjoy heavenly bliss and a whole variety of celestial sensual pleasures.
Edro twist on video to fa Mingala Puero Akana Dweboli Sansa Biabia Sindaza Simian Tare Sinigo Lala Baba Simbima Namongi Pele the Loboli To Kamago Bore Napi Loga Sura Anija Mamiebabu Adua Makanga Mamu Edru Mamie Makangane Nabi Loga Miuma Lula Tamete Sanaraga Mabudai Babu, Perai Bare, so that a Nina body, Dilo de Berry, Piagin. Kamagoya, a beauty, will ever me as Fafiaga Celebido, Majaro Mubare.
Having aroused the interest of worldlings by this skillful means of presenting the pleasures of the celestial realms, the Buddha started to talk about the faults and disadvantages of having a desire for such celestial pleasures. It was like a huge and beautiful elephant adorned with the most magnificent embellishments in preparation for a wedding ceremony. And then when everything was ready, when this magnificent and meticulously adorned elephant was standing very gracefully to start the wedding ceremony, he started to cut off its trunk. So the Buddha started to talk about the disadvantages and the dangers of entertaining any sort of desire for sensual pleasures to be found in the celestial realms.
Kamagundiha, Kamagun Chanariha, Abasara, Kama, Bahudukha, Bhupayasa, Arino eta beyo Kamagoni ha Taya Welia Nene Liva Bodukasra Budukasra Senior Miare Kusi Senior 6 years. That is Jimare. Peter Leve Pimamuria Leve Miavare. Idama Abiana Saria Leve Alomiavare. Idamia Sofia Tila Yashi a Jew sitting Chanari for my body. Adino Ninwabo a beauty. A beauty, Peter Ninwamuri, a Saint Nature Muri body. For Piali Shiva.
The Buddha would go on to talk about the transiency of sensual pleasures, how they are so fleeting, how they just come and go, and there is nothing really good about it. It doesn't have the essence, it doesn't have a true flavor. They come and go so ephemerally that it's not really worth all the suffering, mental and physical, that you have to go through to enjoy those fleeting moments of apparent happiness. Not only do we suffer mentally and physically the pain of hankering and chasing these elusive moments of happiness, but we get fatigued and tired by our endless activities and schemes. The Buddha talked at length about how much fault and how much disadvantage there is in the pursuit of such transient sensual pleasures.
Tatavariya solution Kuna Bioga Bienasa Madrizia Erarine Tandia Kiricha Mavoli Yudan and the Sessa Villa Chini Tandia Ninwani Rabe Nise Kania Rabe Buban Sieni Rabe Tari Mamijalova Nabi Loka has solution Kamago Abiori Miera Shini Lusu Melo through Mawan Yabu. The Mu beat the Mu Kamago whatever Nini Rabe. The show not is solution Kamago Abio Judah Nemolo Sadine Chima Masalu. They do a relation. Do see into Manalo and Dumuri Shivida, daughter if Shivida. Chasing the daughter relation. Nabua Sila and a Josia Gaune. Tiro Mias of Yaga Edru Kanzalu one and Nabua Ha Peta one to the Diluleve Make Java. Peta have a lot of as I'm one. Who made a tiny year leve you to the eminent Jeware. Loga Nabi Jilu Soa Mavabe. Tavimelo, Taina Bi to the Garo. You to the Jewar the low body. Appeori Miabiro. Wa the Lama so that is only Mavabe. Tawiga Ya the Lama so that leve at his own Mave. Tawagari Pibiro, the gay Chanda, Toya Lamoli. Shadala Mishabula, so I leve his own Mave. Who for you, Agudea, Lila, Shida Puguria, Kamago Ioniha, Bama Mahofu, Sarabolina, Leviro, Kamago got Tweviro to Matoya, Lanshani Jada, Chanda and Lanshani Jada. They went as their gona, Navia Ludo Jave.
Precisely because beings are ignorant of this fact, that the pursuit of this elusive happiness to be found in sensual pleasures leads them to a lot of suffering, that they continue to perpetuate their existence in the vicious cycle of samsara, unaware that their pursuit of this ephemeral and elusive happiness is actually a process of self-oppression, a process of being oppressed and tortured and withered by these unsatiable desires for sensual pleasures. Beings keep on turning in the great big wheel of samsara unendingly. The Buddha also talked about the celestial realms in terms of the many varieties of sensual pleasures that are available. It cannot be doubted, it cannot be denied that there is a wide range of all conceivable sensual pleasures available in the celestial realms. But as you all know, desire is insatiable. And so these celestial beings move around trying to experience one pleasure after another, hankering after this elusive happiness, not knowing that there will be no end to their desires. The more you want, the more desirous you become. And because they are never satisfied, they keep on eating more and more sensual pleasures, but never feel full. The Buddha likened them to petas, hungry ghosts. They have the sensual pleasures available for them, but because of their insatiable desire, they are never satisfied. They are never fulfilled. They keep on running around in circles and in circles. In fact, there are some celestial beings who get so lost and absorbed in sensual pleasures that they forget to eat. And in the celestial realm, if you forget to eat, you die. And there are many celestial beings who die on account of forgetting to eat, because they were wallowing in sensual pleasures. The celestial beings too are not freed from conceit and pride and jealousy and miserliness. They fight with one another. They have jealousy and great anger that can arise in them. And because of their composition, if anger becomes too intense, they too will have to end their life immediately.
နတ်ပြည်လောကမှာတရားဓုမရသေးတဲ့နတ်တွေဆိုရင်တည်တဲ့အခါမှာအများအားဖြင့်မကောင်းတဲ့ဘဝတွေသာလာကြတယ်။ဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုတော့လူပြည်လောကပြုလုပ်သွားတဲ့ကုသိုလ်ကောင်းမှုကြောင့်နတ်ပြည်လောကမှာသူတို့အပျော်ကျူးတော့နောက်ထပ်ကုသိုလ်အသစ်တွေထပ်ပြီးတော့မဖြစ်ဘူး။နည်းတယ်။ ဥပမာဘာနဲ့တူလဲဆိုတော့အရွယ်ကောင်းစဉ်ကအလုပ်ကြိုးစားလို့ စီးပွားတွေတော်တော်ဖြစ်ပြီးအိမ်ကြီးအိမ်ကောင်းတဲ့ပေါ့လေခန့်ခန့်ညာညာနဲ့စိန်ခံပြီးတော့နေတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်များလိုပဲနောက်ထပ်ဝင်ငွေကမရှိဘူးအရင်ကစုဆောင်းထားတဲ့ဟာတွေပဲစားလို့ကုန်သွားတဲ့ခါကျတော့ငွေလဲကုန်ရောလူကလည်းပဲအိုသွားအလုပ်ကလည်းမလုပ်နိုင်တော့ပြတ်ငတ်သွားတယ်လို့ပဲအဲ့ဒီသဘောမျိုးပဲကုသိုလ်တွေကုန်သွားတော့သူတို့မှာနောက်ထပ်ကုသိုလ်အကျိုးဆက်ဖို့ရမှာမြင်တော့အပယ်လိုက်ကြတာတွေများတယ်
It may not be wrong for us to say that in this planet, on this planet Earth, this country could perhaps be called the Deva land of planet Earth. You have a wide spectrum of sensual pleasures available to you. And whether or not you are satiated, whether or not you feel satisfied by this great spectrum of choice is a question which you best can answer. Whether or not there are some of you who find that all these sensual pleasures do not contain any essence. Those of you who realize the emptiness of sensual desires and sensual pleasures will also be able to speak for yourself whether you are disillusioned with the promise of happiness that comes to the experience of sensual pleasures. You will be able to answer for yourself whether it's because you have realized such emptiness in life that you have come to meditate, to seek a higher sort of happiness, to seek a path that will lead you away from this insatiable path of sensual pleasures. The celestial beings in Deva land, the real one, some of them are quite special in the sense that they have realized the Dhamma. But for those poor creatures who are still mere mortals, who are not yet noble ones, who have not yet realized the truth of the Dhamma, they live in a precarious situation. Their prosperity and happiness, their availability of this wide range of sensual pleasures is made possible because of their past karma. Because before their rebirth in Deva land, they had been working hard in the human world. They have worked hard in terms of doing merit, of carrying out a lot of wholesome activities, doing a lot of wholesome karma, as a result of which they gain rebirth in Deva land and enjoy the bliss and happiness experienced through sensual pleasures. But because they get so caught up, so engulfed in the sensual pleasures up there, they become very heedless people. They forget to continue to perform wholesome deeds, meritorious actions. And on top of that, they spend a lot of time having to deal with a lot of greed and hatred and jealousy and other unwholesome states of mind that arise in conjunction with the sensual pleasures that they are experiencing. They are, perhaps they can be likened to a human being who works pretty hard when he is a young man. He works hard and he gets a lot of money. He uses the money to build a huge and luxurious mansion and furnish it with the best of furniture. He lives in luxury and wastes his money without looking for further income. In fact, in other words, he retired at an early age and indulged in the pleasures of the senses. But inevitably, when his income diminishes, he will find himself in a sorry spot. He will not have the money to pay for the rent, to pay for the heating, for the electricity, for all the other conveniences and luxuries that he had been enjoying. Eventually, he will have to undergo a lot of suffering, and because he has reached an age where it would be difficult for him to go back to work, you can imagine the suffering that he will have to go through before he expires from this human existence. So too, in the celestial realms, in Deva world, many of the Devas are oblivious of this essential need to continue to do wholesome deeds. They wallow so deeply in sensual pleasures that upon their death, they land up in states of misery.
နတ်ပြည်လောကမှာထက်တန်းစားကုသိုလ်မဆိုထားနဲ့အငယ်စားဒါနကုသိုလ်ကိုတော်မှလူကံပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ကောင်းမရှိလို့ပြုခွင့်မရလှပါဘူး။ငါးပါးသီလတော့ပြည့်စုံတာလေးတော့ရှိပါတယ်။ဒါပေမဲ့လို့ဥပုသ်သီလပေါ့လေစောင့်တည်ဖို့ဆိုတာသိမလွယ်ဘူး။တရားမင်းတစ်ခါဥပုသ်စောင့်တည်လို့ရှိရင်နောက်သမီးတွေကဝန်းကျင်မှာဝိုင်းပြီးတော့အလှတွေပြကြတော့ပုတိပုတ္တတွေလောက်တော့ခဏခဏဥပုသ်ကျိုးတယ်တဲ့သူပြည်လောကဆင်းပြီးတော့ဥပုသ်ဆောင်ရတာသမာဓိဘာဝနာပညာဘာဝနာကတော့စိတ်ငြိမ်ရမှာဟုတ်တော့တော်တော်ခက်ပါတယ်တော်တော်ခက်ပါတယ်ထက်တန်းစားကုသိုလ်တွေစီးဖို့ဆိုတာသိမလွယ်ပါဘူးအဲ့ဒါတွေခြေကနားလေထားဖို့သိအရေးကြီးပါတယ်
Deva land is actually a place of heedlessness, of heedlessness. It is difficult even to try to perform an act of charity in the Deva world, for there is no one there who is a good or suitable recipient of dana, of charity. When it comes to sila or precepts, although it might be possible to observe the 5 precepts, it is definitely very, very difficult to observe 8 precepts, especially the 3rd of the 8 precepts, and also the others that are concerned with abstention from dance, from entertainment, and so forth. It is said that Sakka, the lord of the Devas, at times attempted to keep these Sabbath day 8 precepts. Needless to say, he had a lot of difficulties. When he was trying to keep those Sabbath day 8 precepts, many of his Deva princesses would come and assume very seductive poses in front of him. They would dance and they would try to entertain him. It was exceedingly difficult. It is said that he tried very often, but without much success. In fact, at times he even had to come down to earth in order to observe the Sabbath day 8 precepts. Talking about escapism. And since it's so difficult to observe the precepts, one can imagine how much more impossible it will be for a person who is interested in concentration and wisdom. The whole Deva world is a big fun fair. There's no place you can go to for a moment of silence. And how can one ever continue to practice meditation? How can there be concentration of mind in this world of constant and unending distractions?
ဒီဝလောကမှာကုသိုလ်ရခွင့်နှစ်ချက်ပဲရှိတယ်ပထမအချက်ကတော့သုဓမ္မာဟာပေါ့လေဆရာကြီးမှာတရားနာရတဲ့ကုသိုလ်တစ်ခုနဲ့သုလာမဏိစေတီမှာပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒီစေတီပုံတော်ပေါ်မှာဂုဏ်တော်တွေထည့်သွင်းပြီးတော့အာယုံပြုရတဲ့ကုသိုလ်အဲ့ဒီနှစ်ခုပဲရှိတယ်အဲ့ဒီကုသိုလ်ကလည်းဘာမှပြောပလောက်တဲ့ကုသိုလ်မဟုတ်ဘူးအမှန်တရားအားနေတဲ့ကုသိုလ်ပါပဲ
The two significant wholesome activities that citizens of Deva land have access to are one, the opportunity to go to the big Dhamma hall up there to listen to Dhamma, and two, to be able to pay respects, pay homage to a stupa up in Deva land. And these two are not really very significant wholesome deeds.
အခုအမေရိကတိုင်းပြည်ကြီးလူကြီးတွေအများကြီးပါပဲအခုလိုတရားနာတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်သူအပြင်တရားထိုင်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တွက်ကြည့်ရင်တော့အမှန်တရားနည်းသလိုနေမှာပါပဲလူပြည်နတ်ပြည်ဒေဝလောကမှာလည်းပဲဒီလိုနည်းပါလိမ့်မယ်နဲ့တူပါတယ်
There are many. You can perhaps look at your own situation here in America. The population of America is very big. And out of these many millions of people, how many actually are interested in listening to the Dhamma? One can imagine how much less the people, the celestial beings up in the Deva land, will be interested in listening to the Dhamma. ဒါကြောင့်အင်္ဂုလိပါဠမထေရကြီးကတရားရပြီးတဲ့နောက်ပိုင်းမှာသူကတာဝေကအနေနဲ့ပေါ့လေမှတ်ချက်ချတယ်။စံကိလိစန္တိဝတ္တ
Bo Satta Tatawari Hare Kilitari ne Piman Siye Bido Nise Kaniyada Jibe no Dilutabuga Jibare.
Thus the Venerable Angulimala, a very notable bhikkhu during the Buddha's time, uttered this exclamation upon his enlightenment. Oh, how beings, all of them, are being tortured by desires, by sensual pleasures, how they are being fatigued, made tired by all these sensual pleasures.
Edelo Miaswa Bhyaga Kamago Ayunibo Ma a bit anasari boli, be nasari ne Popia change out video Eddie Kamago Nega Lumia ne pit Yahambua Mew body, Eddie Bua Mew, Gong Jesu Rico Chichuro Mubare.
After the Buddha had talked at length about the faults and disadvantages of hankering after all these sensual pleasures, after he had impressed upon the people how disgusting and repulsive desire for sensual pleasures is, he embarked on a discourse dealing with the benefits of renunciation. He started to exalt the life of a renunciate, the life of a bhikkhu, of one who has left the world of sensual pleasures to seek a higher sort of happiness.
Luwa solution level Dhamma Midazu Kaisa Siwaye Kaisa Acha Lumuye Kaisa Kamago Kaisa so any Kaisa Shosha Kaniro Luwa Pin and Niara Ha Emana Jimyo Chate Babisa Powaga Lola de Dilushimido Levapia.
At times he would compare the household life to that of a renunciate. Leading a household life is very narrow, is very constricted. One has to continually see to one's wife or husband, to one's family, to the needs of one's wife or husband, to the needs of the family, to all the other things that are concerned with having to upkeep and maintain the household life. One has to think about one's work, about how you earn your living, how to pay the rent and the electricity, and so forth. It is a very claustrophobic sort of space. Whereas the life of a renunciate is very freeing and liberating.
Eddie Kamagonga Tumiamu, a Jew Aniti Pia Babiza called a Jew Aniti Nipia Eddie Babizaga Mutami solution level who kick out since she will live here than Nama. A good kid Yati Boa, Tilashin Boa, Yogi Boa, the level Babizare, Martin Himare. Yanomia leve, Mutamia leve, Yati Boa, Turo Boa, Damani Boa, Yahamboa, what it is, Judah. Here are the Babizar to cover it.
Renunciate refers to different sorts of people. Of course, during the Buddha's time, there were many different sorts of renunciates. We have recluses and hermits. We have novices and bhikkhus on the part of on the part of men, and women also had various different classes. Some of them too were hermits, recluses. Some of them were novices. Some of them were trainees. Some of them were bhikkhunis. In this age, however, we can perhaps include yogis and thilashins or nuns in the category of renunciates. So too with men.
Paṇḍitā Sayadaw Paṇḍitā Sabakija Yagina Vidhanina Asamandara Kamanilu Jangamya Pyatare Paṇḍitā Sayadaw Numukesa Awawarigo Suntaji Asizinya Loba Doda Asajida Klida Aburigo Pienta Nidaya Tanama Kayaw Nitayin Tilu Anet for Tavare Mudamidi solution gonna be your day yogi pit dilation pit mudari solution level yogi pit a day pit Tamani pit Yaha pit body can you Jin can you be a Kilida Buri Pintani Nidaya Tana Kamatanya Makayaw Nitayin Tilu Debe Yava.
The English word renunciate is actually a translation of, a general translation of the Pali word papaja. Now, the word papaja can be defined as the state of having renounced worldly cares and responsibilities in order to exterminate or drive out the heat of the kilesas by going to stay in a retreat center. By that, if we look at that definition, we can therefore include yogis in this category. All those of you who have renounced, temporary perhaps, your worldly cares and responsibilities and obligations to become a monk or to become a nun or a yogi, so that you can strive to cool the heat of the kilesas in this retreat center. You are therefore included in the category of a renunciate.
Teri Paṇḍitā leve napai shibare Atuen tete saune Paṇḍitā ne Ajin saune Paṇḍitā Sura napai shibare Yogi atuen Tilashin atuen Yaha atuen lauda saunthara saunbido Ajin mapalo china atuen saun tete Paṇḍitā khobare Atuen saunthara law mimyate atuen saunthara shi yongnya ne ajin shaobido Mimyate ajin jina da ajin saun Paṇḍitā khobare
There we can perhaps look at renunciate in two ways. There is one sort of renunciate who is only nominal. He is a renunciate by name, in the sense that one may take up ordination to become a novice or a nun or a bhikkhu. One may don the saffron robes. But if one does not put into practice the teaching of the Buddha, then one is only a renunciate by name, by form. The other sort of renunciate, however, is one that is true to its name. A renunciate by practice, a real practitioner of the Dhamma. If one is unable even to observe the basic precepts, even though one may call oneself a renunciate, then no matter whether you are a lay Buddhist, or a yogi, or a novice, or a nun, or even a monk, your renunciation is lifeless. You are a lifeless renunciate. For it is said that the Vinaya, or the discipline, the code of conduct, is the life of the sasana, is the life of the dispensation of the Buddha. Failing even to maintain this purity of conduct at each of your respective levels means that you are actually caring for a dead form.
Yogi Pisa, Dilashin Pisa, Yam Pisa, Reguga, Tadanari at that Tila Mapabu, Solution, Tamari Pina, Diari net Mimi Boa, Tute or Mimia, or Lucien down below Nainobu. Baba let Jumia Nainobu.
In the absence of purity of conduct, it will be quite impossible for a renunciate to enjoy the bliss of renunciation, the happiness of renunciation. It's like, in fact, a lifeless renunciate is like a stillborn, and it will be futile to try to put in life into a stillborn. with this impurity of conduct as a foundation that is unstable, one can never cultivate samadhi or panya, concentration or wisdom. There is no path for the development of concentration or wisdom.
ဒီတော့မြင့်မြတ်တဲ့အသွင်ဆောင်ထားသလောက်အခြေခံသာသနာတော်ရဲ့အသက်အရှင်မွေးအနေနဲ့ပါလာပြီဆိုရင်စိတ်ဓာတ်တွေလည်းပဲတွန့်မြင့်ပေးတဲ့အနေနဲ့သမာဓိတိတ်ခါတွေလည်းပဲကျင့်ပြီးယုံနာပိုက်ခြားသိမှုကအစပညာတိတ်ခါတွေလည်းပဲကျင့်လို့အစဉ်စဉ်ပြည့်စုံသွားပြီအဲလိုပြည့်စုံသွားလို့ရှိရင်အရှင်မွေးဖြစ်တယ်လို့သီလသမာဓိပညာတွေနဲ့ရှင်ယဟန်ဘဝဟာယောဂီဘဝဟာအမြဲတမ်းရှင်သန်နေတယ်ဖုံဖုံဖြိုဖြိုတူတူတက်တက်နဲ့ကျင့်တည်တွေရှိနေတယ်မင်္ဂလာတွေရှိတယ်
If one is, on the other hand, a very lively renunciate, or a renunciate that is very much alive, then one would actually be very meticulous and conscientious in observing one's precepts. The purity of one's conduct is always maintained, and that will serve as a very solid foundation for the development of concentration and wisdom. This is very much like giving birth to a very lively child, a very lively baby. If one is able to care for that baby, it will grow in time into a healthy young person. So too, the renunciate who is able to vitalize his practice will be able to enjoy the fruits of his renunciation.
ဒီတော့လူမှုကိစ္စတွေကိုစွန့်ထားခဲ့ပြီးတော့လောဘဒေါသအစရှိတဲ့ဘဝအစဉ်တန်းနေစေတတ်တဲ့ကိလေသာတွေကိုအပြင်းထန်ငြိမ့်သက်ရာဌာနယောဂီသီလရှင်ယဟန်အဖြစ်ခြေခံခံယူပြီးတော့ပပိစ္ဆာအဖြစ်ပေါ့လေခံယူပြီးတော့မြတ်စွာဘုရားအလိုတော်ကြအတိုင်းအရှင်မွေးပြီးတော့အမြဲတမ်းရှင်သန်ဖို့ရပေါ့လေသီလသမာဓိပညာအကျင့်တရားတွေကျင့်တော့အကျမ်းအလတ်အနုကိလေသာတွေပေါ့လေဒါပယ်ထုတ်တဲ့အနေရောက်နေတာဒီတော့ပပိစ္ဆာအတိပ္ပယ်တစ်မျိုးတိုးလာတယ်ပပိစ္ဆာသီလသမာဓိပညာအကျင့်တရားဖြင့်ကိလေသာတွေကိုပယ်ထုတ်ခြင်းဆိုတာပေါ့လေပယ်ထုတ်တော့အပူတွေငြိမ့်တော့အေးတာပေါ့နှိစ္စတတ်တဲ့ကိလေသာတွေကိုယ်မှာကင်းနေတော့နေရထိုင်ရတာချမ်းသာတာပေါ့အဲ့ဒါသမဏဒုက္ခဆိုတာပေါ့လေရလာတဲ့အဲ့ဒီရလာတဲ့သမဏဒုက္ခဟာကာမဂုဏ်ချမ်းသာတဲ့အစာပေါင်းများစွာတာတယ်ဆိုတာပေါ့လေကိုယ်တိုင်ကိုယ်ရသိလာတာကာမဂုဏ်ချမ်းသာကိုစွန့်လွတ်ရယူနှပ်ပြီးဒီချမ်းသာမှာတကယ်ချမ်းသာပဲဆိုတာပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒီချမ်းသာလက်မလွတ်တော့ပဲနဲ့ဆက်လက်ပြီးတော့ကျင့်သုံးသွားရင်အပယ်လေးပါအပါဝင်ပေါ့လေတန်တရားဝဆင်းရဲမှာလွတ်မြောက်နိုင်လောက်တဲ့အထိကျိုးကျေးဇူးတွေရှိသွားနိုင်တယ်အဲ့ဒီအကျိုးကျေးဇူးတွေကိုမြတ်စွာဘုရားဖော်ပြတယ်ဖော်ပြလို့ကျင့်သုံးလို့ရှိရင်ရဟန်းဘုရားခံယူရတဲ့အကျိုးလေးတွေရရှိပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့အဲ့ဒီပပိစ္ဆာဟာကောင်းကျိုးချမ်းသာဖြစ်စေတာမင်္ဂလာဆိုတာပေါ့လေမင်္ဂလာဖြစ်တော့တာပဲပပိစ္ဆာနဲ့မင်္ဂလာပေါင်းစပ်လိုက်တဲ့အခါကျတော့ပပိစ္ဆာမင်္ဂလာတဲ့သိကောင်းတာ
ရှိ So all of you have successfully managed to get away from it all by renouncing your worldly affairs and obligations to come to this retreat center so that you can strive to cool down the heat of the kilesas. If you're able to be true to the nature of your task, if you're able to be pure in your conduct so that you can make progress and concentration and wisdom, you can have the opportunity of experiencing a sort of happiness that is not at all connected with sensual pleasures. It is a happiness which you yourself can realize through your own practice. And if you have had an experience of this happiness that comes out of renunciation of sensual pleasures, you will be able to appreciate that such a happiness far excels that gained through the experience of sensual pleasures. This sort of appreciation is very valuable. It will help you to move even further, give you even more momentum in your practice, more motivation to continue your practice in the spiritual path, so that you can make progress and realize even higher and higher levels of happiness. This is what is called samana sukha, the happiness of a recluse, of one who has renounced the sensual world. This brings us to another sort of definition for the word pabbajja. For when wisdom unfolds through the development of mindfulness and the deepening of concentration, one is able to extract the kilesas which otherwise attack us ever so constantly. And therefore a pabbajja, or the state of a pabbajja, is that whereby, having renounced worldly responsibilities and so forth, one is striving to extract, to uproot the kilesas by coming to stay in a retreat center. No bye, no bye.
No bye, Adam, you what? Kitty Mingran, piece on it, Babisal, Suare.
It will be very appropriate at this point for us to think about this definition and meaning of the word pabbajja, of renunciate. For if we can understand its true meaning, then we can also realize its goal. And for one who has newly ordained as a bhikkhu, as a form of renunciate, it will be very appropriate and important for him to reflect on this so that the goal of to renunciate can be reached and fulfilled during your term of stay in the bhikkhu life.
အဲ့ဒီလိုจิตတိမင်္ဂလာနဲ့ပြည့်စုံတဲ့ရှင်ယဟန်ဘဝမျိုးပပ္ပจิတဘာဝဒုလဘောလို့ဒီလိုမိတ်ကြထားပါတယ်ပပ္ပจิတဘာဝလူမှုကိစ္စကိုစွန့်ထားပြီးတော့ကိလေသာအပူတွေကိုအပြင်းထန်ညှိတရာဌာနကမ္မထမ်းကြောင်းကပ်ရောက်ပြီးတော့သီလသမာဓိပညာအကျင့်တရားဖြင့်ကိလေသာကိုပယ်ထုတ်သောယဟန်ဘဝမျိုးယဟန်အဖြစ်မျိုးကိုဒုလဘောခဲရင်စွာရဤဒုလဘဖြစ်တယ်ရခဲ့တဲ့ပစ္စည်းဆိုရင်လောကမှာရှားပါပြီရှားပါတဲ့ပစ္စည်းကတန်ဖိုးတွေတက်လာပြီအဲ့ဒါလိုရခဲ့ရှားပါပြီးတော့တန်ဖိုးတက်တဲ့ယဟန်ဘဝမျိုးတဲ့အဲ့ဒါယဟန်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သမဏပပိစ္ဆာခေါ်တာပေါ့ယဟန်ဖြစ်ဆိုရင်သီလရှင်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သီလရှင်ပပိစ္ဆာပေါ့ပရိပါဇိကပပိစ္ဆာပေါ့ယောဂီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ယောဂီပပိစ္ဆာပေါ့ဒီလည်းပဲပပိစ္ဆာဖြစ်တာသူ့ဟာနဲ့သူ့အတိုင်းတာနဲ့သူပေါ့လေပပိစ္ဆာမင်္ဂလာတွေဖြစ်ကြတာပါပဲအဲ့တော့အဲ့ဒီလိုမင်္ဂလာဖြစ်ကိုယ်တိုင်ခံယူတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေလည်းပဲအကျိုးရှိအားပေးတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေလည်းပဲအကျိုးရှိပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒီလိုအကျိုးရှိသွားလို့ရှိရင်ရှင်တန်တဲ့အခြေခံသီလပါပြီးတော့အသက်သီလပါပြီးတော့သီလသမာဓိပညာတရားနဲ့ပေါ့လေရှင်တန်ကြီးထွားပြီးတော့ပေါ့လေချမ်းသာမှုတွေအများကြီးရသွားမှာပါပဲအဲ့ဒီချမ်းသာတွေရနိုင်လောက်တဲ့အထိကြိုးစားပွားများအားထုတ်နိုင်ကြလို့အ ਨੇ ဆုံးအပယ်လေးပါးကလွတ်မြောက်နိုင်တော့အောင်ကြိုးစားပွားများအားထုတ်နိုင်ကြပါစေကာမဂုဏ်ကထွက်ပြီးတော့ပပိစ္ဆာအဖြစ်ခံရတဲ့အကျိုးနှပ်ပြီးတော့ကာမဂုဏ်ချမ်းသာကိုပေါ့လေစွဝရီကိုနှပ်အောင်ပေါ့လေကြိုးစားအားထုတ်နိုင်ကြပါစေလို့တိုက်တွန်းရင်းနဲ့ဒီနေ့တရားအဆုံးသတ်လိုက်ပါတယ်
The auspiciousness and blessing of ordination can be appreciated if we understand that becoming a monk, becoming a bhikkhu, is something that is very rare and hard to come by. It is a rare opportunity to be able to become a monk. And just like rare things are very precious and expensive, so too one should regard such a blessing with much respect and reverence. This can be expressed in living the bhikkhu life to its full by putting in life to the form of a renunciate. Life in the sense of purity of conduct. And to go a step further, by cultivating and developing the mind through concentration and wisdom, so that eventually one may be able to realize and experience the happiness of a recluse, the happiness of a renunciate. This also means that your sacrifice involved in renouncing the many sorts of sensual pleasures in order to come to meditate in a retreat center would have been justified. And Sayadaw hopes that all of you present here, all renunciates, whether nun or novice, or yogis, or monks, or bhikkhus, may all of you put life into the form that you assume, the form of a renunciate. Breathe in life and continue to develop the path of concentration and wisdom to attain that unsurpassable bliss and happiness of renunciation, so that your sacrifice of leaving behind sensual pleasures will be justified.